The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to this edition of the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Today is the first day of December 2023, and every first day of December the whole world remembers HIV stroke AIDS. Yeah, today is World AIDS Day, and of course we're trying to advocate or remember this condition and of course stand firm with the various people who have this condition. According to Ministry of Health, Uganda has over 1.5 million people who have HIV or who are living with HIV AIDS. And as we remember, or as we celebrate and commemorate this day, we stand to tell you that HIV is a condition that kills. That is the first thing. But it's a condition that is not a death sentence. So in case you have a virus, you can be able to live a longer life by the help of the new medication that is there. So the world is commemorating the World AIDS Day today, the first day of December 2023. Before I welcome our guest, the panelist, the gentleman who's always here, veteran politician, doctor, retired colonel of the UPDF, Dr. Kizza Besigye. Before I welcome him, he's already here. Allow me just to tell you what has been happening throughout the week. This week has been marred with a lot of information. First, we remember the death of Dr. Kizza Besigye's brother, Musasi Kifefe. Unfortunately, he lost his life 15 years ago. That was in 2007. So we remember the life of that particular gentleman. Today, what does it mean to the struggle, and what does this mean to Dr. Kizza Besigye's life generally? 15 years, what does this look like? And of course, this week has also been a week that government was able to table the report about missing people in Parliament. Remember, the legislators on the opposition side earlier on last month went on strike, and they stopped attending the plenary discussions in Parliament. This was because of the growing concerns of people who are missing, and government's failure to report on these people. Government was able to table their particular report through the State Minister for Internal Affairs, that is David Muhoozi, and we shall be talking about some of the findings therein. Is this something that is really addressing the issue that was raised by the opposition members of Parliament? Has it really been addressed, or we're still politicking around this particular issue? And of course, we delve into the judiciary. Remember, the Supreme Court Justice, that is Chisache, Esther Chisache, unfortunately, will not be retiring from the Supreme Court very, very soon. This is through a letter that was written by the President, replying to Ms. Chisache and saying that she has to first, rectify the issue she had with the Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court, that is, Justice Esther Chisache was unable is not going to be able to resign from the Supreme Court until she rectifies her, grievances with Chief Justice Alphonse Owiny Dolo in that particular regard. What does this mean to this lady? And of course, does this have to, does she have to move and move and move until she's accepted to have her early retirement, or is this something that is being politicized? Many people have got their reservations on this, and of course I'll be asking Dr. Kizza Besigye about this issue. And of course we have the issue of Babye Sarah Chityo, who was the leader of the Uganda Netball Federation. This lady is now, as we speak, in court, and she's, having a bail application for some of the charges that were raised against her. Some of these were misappropriation of the funds that belong to the Uganda Netball Federation. But the question is, a few years ago, we had her whistleblowing on some of the inconsistencies in the money that belong to the Uganda Netball Federation. But how does a whistleblower turn into a suspect and now is spent a night in Luzira? This is not even the first time that she's being imprisoned about those particular charges. So is this something that is syndicated against her, or maybe the law is not really on her side? And of course, lastly, Nabanja, the Prime Minister of Uganda, was able to flag off a consignment of iron sheets now going to Karamoja. This comes after the first consignment was misappropriated by the minister herself and some of the individuals there. You remember the Mabati saga. So what does this really mean? That do we now say that the people of Karamoja have got justice as they wanted in the first place? I saw one of the people who were flagging off this consignment was the State Minister for Karamoja. That is really, really something ironic. She has been in prison. Now she's coming back, and she's the one, flagging off this consignment. I thought that Agnes Nandutu was under, scrutiny. What does this really entail? So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Interface Show. Please share this video to as many people as you can. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Let me welcome retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Edgar, and very good morning to all the Digitalk audience that have joined in, and I hope you inform others to also join in and we have a discussion this afternoon. I hope you've had a good week. It's been largely uneventful on my side, grappling with daily challenges and busy with my gardens. I've taken more to digging and farming, and it's a rainy season, so I'm doing a bit more of that. And we have to survive. You're welcome to this week's Interface program.
Okay, Doctor. Let's start with today. We are celebrating or commemorating World AIDS Day. What does this day mean to you?
Well, it's, I think, indeed a day to mark around the world because the AIDS scourge has left scars and wounds and injuries and deaths around the whole world. It's been with us for a period spanning 40 plus years. Still no quite definitive solution to it, although there are some medications that can prolong life, but there is no treatment as yet. And so it's a disease that is of worldwide concern, and especially here in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, where it has had the highest toll compared to all other parts of the world. And also in sub-Saharan Africa, Uganda has been particularly having serious HIV challenges right from the word go. In fact, it will be remembered that even before the epidemic became clear, there was an epicenter here in the Rakai areas of Uganda, where many people were dying and people were wondering what was causing the deaths. And that's how the terminology of slim started, because all people were dying were thinning out and dying when they were very emaciated. And of course then it was discovered that it was due to this infection, the HIV infection, and a lot has changed since then. But regrettably, Uganda remains, of course, with a heavy burden of infection. As you've said, we are close around 1.5 million people who are infected.
Yes.
But even more so, the new infections
Exactly.
that come on board every year are greatly concerning, because this year alone it's projected that 53,000 people, new infections, are going to be registered in Uganda. Now that is a heavy burden coming on board each year.
And just to add that young people are the ones that are really getting this infection.
Well, that is obviously the case, but that is also the population. I mean, we are a very young population. and so whatever comes is grossly, there is an age bias towards the young people. But not only is the cause due to having a young the high prevalence in the young people is not only because we are a young population, but it is also as a result of the vulnerability in the population affecting more the young people, and especially young girls.
Yeah.
Because that's where, first of all, there is a huge bias in terms of sex. Close to 7 people per 1,000 of those that are infected are women, compared to about 5 who are men. So there are women who are more more affected than men. And young girls especially are more vulnerable. Why? Because of the power relations. The fact that they are, well, all young people are needy. Most young people are needy. They have no means of subsistence. And therefore their power to resist advances of a sexual nature is grossly diminished. You know, if somebody, and you know, students, including young girls who are in school, who are at the university, who have nowhere to sleep, yes. who are looking for people to share with, where to sleep and go to school, or who have no money for dinner, and somebody, you know, is offering to buy some chips for them, yes. And in return making sexual advances that they are not able to resist because they want the chips or or where to sleep or where. So the vulnerability of young people exposes them to a greater risk of infection. Secondly, in our society, I think the campaign, the awareness of people generally and young people especially has gone down, and also because there are many people who are on treatment, and therefore there are no visible you know, dangers as they were at the beginning of those slim people that were dying and so on. Some people think that it is no longer a major problem, whereas it is. So information is not getting out as it should, so that people have high levels of awareness of the big problem that there is, of the consequences of getting infected. The messages that go out also have been distorted by some confused people who are in the leadership of this country, who are mainly concerned about you know, morals. They say, you know, don't talk about condoms, those will increase. And it is just confusion. They have not understood human behavior. And so the undermining of protective mechanisms and the availability of those protective mechanisms that, you know, not only are you talking about what can protect people from getting infected, but that it's readily available. How Europe and other places have managed this is that wherever you turn, you can pick a condom. Whether it's in a public toilet, whether it's in what, you can, wherever you. So if, you know, people consider that they must have sex, by the time they think about how to get a condom, it's not available. So all these things have hampered the progress in control of the spread of the disease. Of course, there are also other factors in Uganda, like again, criminalizing certain sections of the population, like sex workers. You know, you find the police hunting sex workers in town, and so they get underground. And because they are underground, they don't seek, you know, health care that they need, and supportive services. for their trade, yet they will continue in their trade. And so you find that sex workers, high number of sex workers become infected and spread, the disease. The men who have sex with men, who again are criminalized, and underground. And as they underground, they fear to seek help because they think they can be arrested or what, and all those elements increase the spread. In fact, in all that, one of the greatest, I think, drivers of the spread of AIDS in Uganda is stigma.
Yes.
People who the high level of fear of being known to have the condition because of the rejection of people with the condition in the society. So people fear to go for testing because then they may be known if they don't have. They fear to go for treatment, even when they know going to the clinic where they collect medicines is stigmatizing for somebody to go and line up for these medicines. And we have not paid sufficient attention to this whole question of stigmatization. Mr. Museveni at the beginning of this pandemic was highly praised for openness, for not trying to cover up the infection and for talking about it, and therefore increasing awareness and getting people to respond by seeking help and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, or regrettably, he then turned to be one of the biggest drivers of stigma. You may recall when he held a special press conference with international journalists and so on to say that I am infected, myself who was contesting after declaring that I'm going to contest against him. He held a big press conference to say this messenger who wants to contest with me is an invalid. In fact, those are the words he says he's an invalid because I know that he's suffering from AIDS. How can you seek to be in the office of the president, you AIDS sufferer, And of course it was a big headline and stories and so on. And what does that do to people who are having actually HIV and so on and so forth? And of course I took him to court and so on and so forth. But and the way he has continued, talking about it, he says this thing you look for it yourselves. It's like people who go touching holes, you'll be bitten by a snake. Every hole you see. He continues vulgarizing a serious condition in a manner that stigmatizes it and undermines its control. And so whatever advances Uganda had initially achieved, he has definitely played a big role in the reversals that we have had, including, of course, as I have said, the confused messaging in terms of what people need to do to control the spread of the infection. The other category of people that have obviously not been focused on, again, the criminalization, are the drug users. Because one of the drivers of, and drug use is on greatly on the increase in Uganda, and in
Yes.
our set, and in young people.
Explain.
And these young people don't have safe apparatus, safe things to use in their addiction. So they share needles, they share all kinds of things that lead to the spread of this problem. As we talk now,
Yes, sir.
South Buganda heads the list of new infections. This is again partly where it started, the Rakai, Masaka, Ruengo, those areas, they head the list of new infections. This year is going to be about 9,000 something, 9,800, close to 10,000 people, new people in that region, followed by northern Buganda, which is Wakiso area, Luwero, that belt, with close to 6,000 new infections, followed by Ankole, with about 4,000 new infections, followed by Kampala, the city, with about 3,500 new infections this year, followed by Busoga. Busoga is followed by Acholi. Acholi is followed by Bunyoro, Bukedi, and so on. And I really hope that people can do all they can, because fortunately, unlike, for example, the COVID, which we have been struggling with, it's easy to control the spread of HIV, because it is spread by means that are easily controllable, sex or blood transfusion, to make sure that if you are to get blood or use syringes that you don't use syringes that have been used by other people, or if you are to get blood transfusion, that it's safe blood. So blood, sex, the things that cause HIV are easily preventable. You can use protection if you want to have sex, and certainly to avoid multiple partners in your relationships and so on. And yes, so I think that young people especially should exercise care, because once you are infected, even if you get treatment, it's a lifelong situation that will affect how you progress in life. The transmission through childbirth, mother to child transmission, is something that should no longer be happening, because again there is effective management that stops that. If a mother is treated and birth is managed well, there is absolutely no reason why a child should get infected by the mother. But because our healthcare system is in shambles, not only are mothers delivering safely, they are dying. So many die in childbirth, let alone delivering children that are safe from this kind of. So some of these, in the broad sense of what needs to be done to deal with this scourge, it is also what needs to be done to have an effective healthcare system. It goes hand in hand. You cannot manage this scourge in a shambolic healthcare system in fact, non-existent healthcare system like we have, like there is in Uganda. Because just having healthcare institutions is not a system. We don't have a healthcare system. Even these statistics we talk about, it is because there are some international bodies, like UNAIDS and so on, that invest in trying to understand what is going on. But a lot is not recorded. There are many people who are not in the captured anywhere, and so really we must sort out the healthcare system, and that means we must sort out the governance of Uganda. Without sorting out the governance of Uganda, as long as we have this junta of 40 years that has crippled all institutions, all systems, and so on, this is still going to be for the long haul.
This junta, you say, had fought HIV/AIDS to some extent in the earlier years. We had fought HIV, and it's just coming back, reiterating and growing again. What did we do better last time that we are not doing now? Because it's the same junta that was leading at the time.
Well, first of all, of course, the junta has become worse. In the initial stages, don't forget that we were all in government. And there were, I think there were more well-intentioned people in the government then than there is, it has progressively become worse along the way, but as I have pointed out, the messaging went haywire, with all kinds of confused ideas taking charge and confusing the message. The investments have diminished progressively from these services. In fact, when we talk about people on treatment, I think over 90% still of what is invested in the treatment of those infected is by foreigners. So it's foreign money, and especially American money, that is maintaining Ugandan lives that are affected by HIV/AIDS. So we are not the attention, the investment, the policies related, as I have told you, we are busy criminalizing people and driving them underground. Those were not there then. So many things have, I think, added up to create the situation that we are in today.
Okay, that's Dr. Kizza Besigye's message on the World AIDS Day. I hope you have learned something or two. Doctor, before we delve into our conversation, I also want you to comment on the death of Joseph Musasi Chifefe, your brother. 15 years. This week we are remembering him 15 years since his demise or death. And I bring out this question to you because he died in the struggle. He's someone who was advocating for a better Uganda. What does this death mean 15 years down the road to you, but generally to Ugandans? What does the death of Mr. Chifefe Musasi Joseph stand for?
Well, of course, it's a bit emotional for me to remember and talk about his life, because he was someone that was our youngest kid in the family, and one that we cherished. And indeed, his tragic demise was largely associated with what I was doing, because he was arrested and charged together with another 22 people of belonging to a rebel group that was called People's Redemption Army that I was supposed to have formed, and so the last years of his life were very miserable in jail in Ruzira maximum security prison, where I eventually found him when I came back from exile in South Africa in 2005. I was detained in the same and eventually added on the charge that they had been on. So we lived in the same cell in the east wing of Ruzira prison. They are tiny cells, generally to be inhabited by one person, where each one is locked at night. During the day, you can spend time together in a small compound of the ward. And I was living for the time, all the time I was in Ruzira, we were staying in the same cell, which, as I have said, was meant for one person. We were staying together in that cell. Of course, the cell has no amenities, so there is a pail that is placed in the cell where you help yourself. Until you are opened, and the lockup in Ruzira is at 4 in the afternoon until the next day. So you are in that confined place for that time. And he was there for 3 years in Ruzira. They got bail, but feared the threats that were outside the court. They feared to take their freedom. Although they had been granted bail, they chose to go back to to prison. Yes. Yes.
Prison was better.
The threat that they saw outside and waiting for them, they said, we are not going to go out. We would rather go back to prison. And they came back to Ruzira. I wasn't in the court that time. They were the ones who were in the court who had applied for bail. Eventually I got bail and got out. And eventually they again got bail. And they didn't manage to get out, because when they were given bail, that's when the military invaded the courts, beat up, judicial officers, including one of our lawyers. Regrettably, he died recently, Mr. Kiemba Mutale. He was all blood. And in front of the high court judges and the principal judge, in front of their eyes, they very violently rearrested these fellows. That time they were remaining, I think, 6. No, I think they were 8. 8 of them were violently rearrested, beaten in front of the judges. But eventually we learned when they were produced in different courts. So 4, including Joseph, were produced in Bushenyi court and charged with murder of some, I think, person called Biarohanga or something, who eventually was never to have existed anywhere. They just put a name charged with murder of so and so, who had never lived. Biarohanga never lived anywhere. He had no village. He has never lived. The one they murdered, for whom they were charged with murder, and therefore, although they had bail, and the others, their colleagues, were taken to Arua, because they were coming from that area. They were taken to Arua, charged with murder also of somebody, and from there and remanded there. These ones remanded this way and kept in horrible conditions. And the torture that they went through before they arrived in the other prison, and the conditions in which they were in that prison without being allowed visitors and so on, I think is eventually what caused this Joseph to get unwell and eventually to die. So obviously we remember his life with a lot of emotions, and but also we celebrate it because though he lived a short life, he applied it meaningfully, and he died simply because he chose to stay and to seek justice, social economic justice for our country, like we are doing, and like many other people have died for the political views that they hold. That is entirely the reason that led to his death, which obviously inspires us to fight on so that he does not die, and many others who have died like him don't die in vain. That what they died trying to achieve can be eventually achieved. And that's why we use the memory of this day. By the way, it's 16 years, not 15. I think I'm the one who caused confusion on my social media. First indicate that it was 15 years. It's 16 years now. The kids he left 2 kids who were, very young then. They are, one has graduated from college. The other one is in the university doing medicine. They have grown, and we thank the Lord for that. So we shall continue fighting until all these people that have made the ultimate sacrifice, wherever they are, know that they did not die in vain.
Okay, thank you so much. I was just going to ask you is it on record that you tried to seek justice for Mr. Musasi? Did you file anything in court? Yes, I know it is ironical, but... No,
we haven't, and we won't.
Because sometimes
the justice that can be served on him is to achieve his goal.
Okay.
That's what I think we must double our efforts to do.
All right, let's delve into a conversation of the Judiciary Court. Justice Esther Kisache, during the 2021 election, wanted to give her own verdict on the issue of Robert Kyagulanyi, on the presidential petition. She was not allowed to table that verdict. She was never allowed to speak to the press, and from that time, there has been a lot of controversy around this lady. It even has reached a point where she was not even receiving remuneration or salary for her job as a Supreme Court justice. Now, a few years down the road, she has decided to file for retirement, early retirement from the Supreme Court, but it feels like she is not going to be receiving this in any time soon. Doctor, people like Justice Esther Kisache and generally the judiciary, I thought we were supposed to be given justice. Is this the case, or How better can we address such an issue?
Edgar, I've just been telling you how the court
Witnessed.
was attacked, the institution that she serves in, how it was, in fact, the blood that our brother Kiemba Mutale was bleeding was on the floor of the Deputy Chief Justice then, the late Letitia Chikonyogo. And it was chilling for the judiciary. In fact, the Justice Chikonyogo then was acting as Chief Justice because the Chief Justice was out of the country at the time. And she called on the whole judiciary to lay down their tools. The judiciary, I think for the first time in the history of this country, went on strike because of the attack, the unprecedented attack, vicious attack on the institution in broad daylight. The retired Justice James Ogola, who was principal judge then, and as I have said, in whose eyes, in front of whom this, gross violation of right happened, wrote to say that this was a rape of the temple of justice. Now, that rape, just like all types of rape, did not leave the judiciary the same. It's a raped institution, even today. It's a raped institution. You can no longer, in the remotest sense, talk about independence of the judiciary. Gone. There is no independence of the judiciary. It is totally subordinated to Mr. Museveni. I can't say to the executive because it's not the executive. It is Mr. Museveni and his family who control all institutions. And therefore, Justice Kisache committed high treason in the eyes of the controller of her institution to attempt to write judge and offer judgments against the king. That is treasonable, and that is what she's suffering. It is that king who says, no, you will not go away. I'm sorry.
Because he says you must
first be
yourself.
Totally humiliated, so that those who may remotely think of doing what you did know what it means. They will make her a lesson, just like they humiliate us who stand up to challenge the king, to say, I will remove you. That is treason, and you will be subjected to the gravest treatment. That is what is happening to Justice Kisache. Now, frankly, all judges that function in this kind of environment and have continued to serve in this kind of environment should have known the environment that they have subjected themselves to. They should have known, they know, and indeed quite many, if not all, have adjusted themselves to become servants of the king, in the king's service, not in the service of the people of Uganda. They are in His Royal Majesty's service. and therefore it came indeed as a surprise that on that occasion Justice Kissache acted the way she did because she's been in the Supreme Court. In fact, she was past, I think she was senior to Dolo. She should have become the chief. Maybe her grievances stem from there, from how she was unappreciated as a person, and maybe she has found some kind of ways. She tried to have some ways of protesting, maybe, or something like that. But let it be known that the judiciary simply has, and not just the judiciary, all institutions are totally captured, including the judiciary. And as I have pointed out before, 100% of all judges of all courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal and Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, 100% of all judges of all courts have been appointed by Mr. Museveni. While he already had the clear trajectory of being a life president, and therefore seeking a judiciary that is going to play the role of his court to protect him in his life presidency. So the people he has appointed, he has been very careful to see that he appoints. Occasionally there is somebody who reaches there and attempts to be independent-minded and apply judicial principles in execution of their duties, and they get into problems. Though whoever tries gets into problems.
Then our constitution must have the problem because it gives Mr. President the power to appoint these judges.
Yes, though I wouldn't blame the constitution entirely because there is a process. First of all, there is a Judicial Service Commission, of course, which is also appointed by the president, but which is supposed to make recommendations to the president. And then there is the parliament that confirms his appointment. So even when he appoints these judges, they must be confirmed by parliament. And if they are not confirmed by parliament, they would not be. Of course, we know that parliament is also part of the institutions that are captured. So the Judicial Service Commission, the parliament are all servants of Mr. Museveni. And to that extent, yes, that's why all the judges are his personal appointments to the extent that he wants. But the Constitution actually secures them in their office to a significant extent. Though he may appoint them, he doesn't have equal power to remove them. So if they acted as their mandate provides in the Constitution, he would not easily remove them. Of course, he can kill them, and they know that also. He could kill them, and maybe that threat has also been is always subtly dangled there. But the Constitution protects them from removal because of their decisions. In order to remove a judge, you have to go through a fairly rigorous and public process of showing that the judge has indeed committed a grave violation of his mandate. No judge has been subjected to such a process that I am aware of, because the appointments, I think, have been thorough to bring people that are completely, obedient to the appointing authority. And as I have said, the institutions themselves are no longer capable of influencing how those appointments are made. So, yes, the unfortunate thing is that through the appointments, through the threats, the judiciary is completely subservient. And indeed, for whatever motivated Justice Besigye to protest, because I think that was some kind of a protest, she will get the full wrath of the king, and that is what she's suffering from. Certainly the letter that Mr. Museveni wrote is outrageous. I mean, and it shows how he holds the country in contempt, because he doesn't have the power to stop her according to the Constitution, according to the laws and regulations. He doesn't have any such power to stop a judge from resigning. He doesn't. And I don't know what Justice Bessigye's response to that letter will be, but she, I think, should defy it, should challenge it. Mr. Museveni has no power at all to stop her from resigning. If she has some infractions that they are concerned about, nothing stops those processes of investigation or whatever continuing, but the Constitution does not give the president the right, any form of right, to stop a judge that decides and writes that I am resigning.
Doctor, let's first pause there. Now the question is, the legislature is not up and running. The executive has been bossed by the president. Now the judiciary is also under, the wing of Mr. President. What else can Ugandans do? Because we are at a time where people seek for justice and end up running away from the temple of justice. And this is the only place where they can go for, clarity and adjudication. So what does this really mean? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go for a short commercial break. When we come back, we start from that conversation. What is the place that Ugandans can go now? Because it feels like every place has been condoned off by Mr. President. And of course, there is a growing sentiment that every word that the president says becomes law. President has the power to stop someone from resigning. President has the power about literally everything. Is the Constitution giving Mr. President that power, or we have reached a point where Mr. President has become the law? This is the Interface Show.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
But at the church,
Tolly man, what's up?
man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly, because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tanjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiki wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Era tezo tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting at topic yona gyandiyagadde twogereko tujja kwa tujogera kwano ku the Alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
That's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Two minutes past 1 p.m. Thank you so much for watching the Interface Show. I hope you are enjoying your lunch right about now. We're into the second and final hour of the interface. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. I'm still with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. I have a couple of messages from you people. I'll be reading them subsequently. I see most of them. But before we delved into the break, we are having a conversation of what is happening in the Temple of Justice. And it looks like every arm of government is compromised. So what is the alternative for Ugandans? And before I even pose that question to Doctor, there is a statement that was made by Mr. President Musasi, and here he says, most people trying to contest against me are only interested in power, but in reality they have nothing to offer Ugandans. All they have in their mind is power. In such circumstances, I would be a bad person to let my people of Uganda fall into the bad hands. That's why I'm here and still here for a very long time. After all these controversies that you talk about, Mr. President says he cannot entrust people like you with power because you don't have Uganda at heart. What do you have to comment about that, sir?
Well, that is, I think, again, meant to really show his contempt for Ugandans. That he alone is the only judge as to who has Uganda's interest or not the people of Uganda. He thinks the people, that he cannot risk giving power to another person. He will be endangering his people. In other words, the people he calls his, he owns them and thinks for them. And
in fact, that means there is no way Ugandans can take power, can change government.
No,
it's not about Ugandans. No. It's about him to give
absolutely, power. Absolutely. So it's his contempt. He doesn't, you see, he's so decadent now that he doesn't think about the effect of what he says, that he's trashing the people of Uganda, that, you are so incapable of determining for yourself. It is only me to determine for you, and my determination is that all these people, in fact, from what you read, he said most, he avoided saying all. So what about the few he considers, it is all indeed. So on the one hand, says, it's too risky to let anybody, so it is him to let, to let anybody take charge of the country because they don't deserve, so it's him to allow or to disallow. This is unconstitutional, of course. It is ridiculous. It shows the mindset of somebody who is whose thinking is completely warped and definitely a grave danger to our country and society. You were asking earlier on, what do we do if all institutions are incapable of independence to serve Ugandans, are all beholden to the person of Mr. Museveni.
He's now the law. It seems like he's the law.
He is sovereign. That is what sovereignty means. He is sovereign. He is, all power belongs to him, not to the people of Uganda. And what you've just read is the confirmation of his own thinking that is the case. That all power belongs to him. He decides what happens to the country, what happens to governance of Uganda. It is him to decide. That is what he now not only thinks but says. It's obviously at total variance with the constitutional setup of the country. Article number 1, very first article of the Constitution. Later on, the preamble, what the the Constitution says in its preamble, where we had passed up to 1995 the instability, the chaos caused by people like him now. And Article number 1 of the Constitution says, now we give ourselves this Constitution, and Article number 1 says, all power in this country belongs to the people, not to Mr. Museveni. He, in that written tweet, violates that. He does not consider that power belongs to the people, and it is them to determine how they will be governed and who will govern them. It is entirely, the Constitution says it's entirely the people to determine that. He says, no, it is me. I cannot allow. These sometimes calls them pigs and all kinds of things. I cannot allow these hyenas, these what, to take over power. It's him to allow or to disallow. So, the Constitution ceased functioning as was intended a long time ago. And the question of what do we do, fortunately, is also addressed in the same Constitution, Article number 3, because we had passed through similar challenges of these dictators. So, in making the Constitution of 1995, in which I happened to have the opportunity to be part of, the provisions were meant to safeguard against the likes of Mr. Museveni. Indeed, up to then, all change of power had been mediated by force. And so Article number 3 talks about what happens when the constitutional order is overthrown, like he clearly has with impunity overthrown the constitutional order. And what Article number 3 prescribes is a revolution, that the people of Uganda shall then do everything in their power to re-establish the constitutional order. What, in simple terms, it provides for is a revolution, that the people shall undertake a revolution to re-establish their power. That is the core on all Ugandans. And it's not, that article is one of the, I think, very few articles that does not talk about this as optional. It's obligatory. Yes. It's mandatory. It says once this happens, then it's the duty of every Ugandan. It imposes a duty on all of you people to undertake a revolution. It's a duty. It's not but if, no, it's a duty. We have a duty to overthrow Mr. Museveni and his regime and reinstate the power of the people. Reinstate the constitutional order. We have a duty, a constitutional duty.
But it sounds criminal for you to carry out that duty in this country.
Of course, of course, I have told you that challenging, even not just that article, but even other articles saying I want to contest against you. Or like Justice Chisache said, sir, I am resigning from your government, from the judiciary. No, you want, I want to contest with you. Then you become a criminal. You are an enemy. How can you contest with the king? Because in his mind, he's a king. That's why this Mohozi man who was coming up to say, I want to also succeed you, he has told him, it's all right, you can be my successor, but not when I am still here, you know. And that is the, so we are trapped in that reality. And so the clarion call for all Ugandans, whether you are in NRM, whether you are where, the clarion call, constitutional call, is that we must now undertake the duty of reestablishing the constitutional order of Uganda. And that can only be by revolution, because impunity, which is the rule now, the order of the day is impunity. He has usurped the power of all institutions and does not care what the law says, what the constitution says. He doesn't care. He is using force because he took over power by force. So the order under which he remains now leading Uganda is not because people have vested power in him. It is because he overthrew the powers that were there and installed himself. And he doesn't care what you say, who you are. You know, if you want to challenge him, you are in mortal danger. Now that is what we must face. We must face it, and face it urgently. We must urgently challenge this, including the members in the military service. Because people in the military service swear by to protect the constitution. So the people in the military service have a constitutional duty to overthrow Mr. Museveni. They have. It's a constitutional command. Like there is a command on all Ugandans. We have a command to end this impunity. It's a command. We must. There is no way we can allow someone to usurp constitutional authority, to become the constitution. No. And to write with impunity, you know. I will not allow this. It's not you, you know. I will not allow such to retire. I will not do this. I will, and you know, people who have disappeared, whom you want to talk about, people disappear, people get killed, people what, and life continues. No, exactly. We must say no very firmly and go ahead to do what must be done. Those who get killed in the process, like we were talking about my brother, sorry, that is the cost of having a country. Yes, some people will get killed, some people will get injured, but that's the cost of having a country.
Okay, Doctor, at just 6 minutes past 1 p.m., I want us to just listen into the State Minister for Internal Affairs, that is David Muhoozi, tabling the report about human rights abuses and, of course, some of the few individuals that have disappeared. Those remarks were made by the National Unity Platform opposition, that is Matthias Mpuga. He tabled this report. They went on strike and were away from the plenary for a while. Now the government tables a report about these missing people. Was this conclusive? And I want us to juxtapose it with 2001, because Dr. Kizza Besigye, also at that time in 2001, many people disappeared therein. How did he do this, and has the government really treated this with the utmost emergency that it needs? Let's watch this video. We'll be right back.
The issues raised by the leader of the opposition in Parliament regarding his statement about alleged human rights abuses and shrinking of civic space. An investigation was done immediately after the riots, and a report to that effect was presented to the last Parliament by the then Minister of Internal Affairs. Bill that the said sentencer, Frank, fell off a speeding vehicle, number UPH 856T, minibus Toyota Hiace used by the NUP supporters during the incident at Busega roundabout. The military police vehicle mentioned was following this motorcade from behind when the incident happened, but is not responsible for this fatality. Police vehicle registration number UP4841 was involved in the deliberate killing of Rita Nabukera, and the matter remained uninvestigated is also not true. Information of 9 people out of the 18 wasn't available. The data profile lack thereof from the various agencies for the given names is contained in Annex F. The alleged disappearances were never reported to the police. For example, the alleged disappearance of Damulira John, Chiria Peter, Wangolo Dennis, Cesars Isma, Mubiru Hassan, Bagumba Joseph, alias Semuju Joseph, and Zimura Dennis, alias Boy, were all never reported to the police. It would be wrong and unlawful for law enforcement to mistreat a Muslim by applying methods that are in contravention of the law, as it would any other person of a different faith. As of 30th September 2023 indicates that Muslims constitute only 16.4% of the inmates of all Uganda, in all Uganda's prisons.
I'll be back on Tuesday to make a rejoinder, Right Honourable Speaker. And in that rejoinder, I'll make very particularized prayers for which this House of Parliament will be on taste.
Tutegeeza nti abantu bano si beetegefu kunyonyola ggwanga buvunaanyizibwa bwe balina obw'obukuumi eri abantu n'okutegeeza eggwanga wa abantu baffe gye baabuzibwa. Abasoma ekiwandiiko simanyi kye banaalowooza ku yeetaddeko omukono n'abamuyambyeko ekikola, kubanga abantu aba bulijjo n'abataasoma balina obujulizi obumala ku byakolebwa n'ebikolobero n'abantu abaabuzibwawo.
And all that video is got from BBS TV, so credit to them. He talks about Frank Centers and he says this is not responsibility of the UPD, of the police van, but yes, he jumped off the car that belonged to Robert Chagulanyi, but who knocked him? That is something that we also want to know. He also mentions Nabukera. It's supposed to be Nabukenya, Rita Nabukenya. He says there is no evidence that suggests that the police was behind her death, but I remember she was knocked down along Nakawa. There was a camera at the place where she was knocked down. Where is that footage? They have not yet showed it to us. He also mentioned something called unwitnessed kidnaps. I did not know that those are there, some unwitnessed kidnaps. He also mentions that some people were not reported to the police. So, Doctor, my question to you is, you have been through such circumstances in the past. Many of people have been disappeared, and many of them, some were not really discovered. How did you go about this particular issue? And do you think, in your perspective, the government has fully answered to the question of the missing people and the human rights abuses that have been, alleged against them?
You see, Edgar, and all viewers, having said what I just said about the institutions of government, it simply means that we are flogging a dead horse. I don't know what we hope to get out of all this. Because that whole report is ridiculous from the beginning, because the accused is the investigator and is the court is the judge and the one pronouncing the outcome. It does not make any sense because and that whole report indeed, like the Honorable Mpuga was saying, is an indictment. It really convicts the person who appended the signature on it, Mr. Otafiri, that this is, and maybe he was right to be ashamed to read it and to put the burden on his Minister of State to be the one to read it. I really pity General Muhoozi, because I think General Muhoozi, to subject himself to reading that ridiculous report.
No, but he says that report was by JJ. It is not by Otafide and him. It is just, he's reading a report that was from JJ Odong.
I'm talking about the report he presented to Parliament. It is signed by Otafide. Okay. He's the one who takes official responsibility for the report that is before Parliament. So Otafide and Muhoozi are the main culprits, because if I was Muhoozi, I would refuse to read it. I would simply say, it's your report, please find time and carry your burden. I wouldn't read it. And if I was to read anything, I wouldn't read in the form in which this one was. You see, the very reason governments formed from the beginning, from a situation where people lived on their own and without central authority, the reason central authority evolved was primarily security.
Yeah.
It was central authority emerged in society over security matters. Communities who would raid other communities, families that would fight other families. So central authority, the primary role of any government is security of the people for whom it is mandated, And Mr. Museveni himself, while still laying some claim to legitimacy, is remembered to have said that, how can you, being a president and being in charge of a country, even a needle cannot get lost. How can people, human beings, how can they disappear? It cannot happen under my charge. That was a Museveni then. You were talking about what the policy of AIDS was and the accolades the country got. That was a Museveni then. Now, his report, because his ministers act on his behalf, it is Mr. Museveni is the executive. The executive authority of Uganda is vested in the president. Not in ministers, not anywhere else. It is vested by the constitution in the president. And security is the first mandate of any president. Now he says that the relatives, he shifts the blame to the relatives for not having registered the number of the people that took away Ugandans.
And this question,
and that therefore that he has nothing to do because the relatives.
He also mentions unwitnessed kidnapping.
Yes, this is
now
it.
I wonder that some people that we are talking don't have anybody to ask.
So the first thing is whether such Ugandans lived. Once you establish that this Ugandan, this is a Ugandan that lived in Uganda, is registered as a Ugandan, it is your responsibility to know where their safety. Not the responsibility of his relatives or his what. It is your responsibility, you, Mr. President, to know how safe that Ugandan is. If he moved out of the country, you are responsible to know whether he moved out or didn't. People should not move out of your country without your knowledge. It is still your failure.
But are they politicizing this? Yes, it may be a failure on government, but they're politicizing the fact that some people are outside there and they are saying that they are dead, according to that report also.
Pardon?
Some people have been found, some of the missing persons.
You see, there is nothing
Uganda.
politicized. If somebody raises the question of where a Ugandan is, they are concerned about where that Ugandan is, and they are entitled to be concerned about where that Ugandan is. Then it's your duty to inform the people concerned and the Ugandans at large where that person is. It's your duty. You cannot shift your duty and say, you know, some people move out of the country without our knowledge. Find out. And if there are indeed people moving out of the country without your knowledge, then you are also responsible. You take primary responsibility for the safety and security of all Ugandans. It's your direct mandate. You cannot, you know, evade it under any guise. Least of all to say that family members have not informed me. These ones were not recorded. Whether there is no reason for recording. The question is, are these Ugandans? What I would understand is if he said, no, there has never been such a person like Chibarama. He has never lived, so I have no responsibility for him. He has never, or he was a Ugandan. He moved out. This is on this day, because anybody who moves out of the country, that's why we have a whole department of immigrations that controls both immigration and emigration. Travels abroad and so on, they are regulated. So you should be able to say, this one moved out on this day. He's still out there. He's not within my jurisdiction. He moved out and this is the evidence. The rest is your responsibility to understand where they are.
Doctor, before you even move on, you've talked about responsibility, and this brings me to this issue. There are people that have died and the government has actually claimed responsibility. For example, there is Zebra, who was murdered, and the president also claimed or assured the Ugandans that he sent the people to Zebra's home. So that is on record. There are people that died on the 18th and 19th of November or during 2020. Those people, some president came out to say some of them were innocent. So those people are on record to have passed on. Doctor, when we look at it from the families of these people that have been lost, who have lost their people, what does government need to do to ensure that there is justice in their homes at the end of the day?
The government can no longer be relied on to do anything. Even that whole exercise in parliament is an exercise in futility.
But
the government is the problem. You see, this is why, you know, that report is very interesting, because it says when they went to ask the families refused to talk to them. They feared to talk to the government, so they came disguised as an NGO, and the family gave them information. What does that mean? You know, that is an indictment of the government of Uganda. It means that the people of Uganda now are terrified of their own government. And that is a huge indictment. But it's not surprising, you know, that many people run away from the police.
Yes.
rather than
rather
than run to the police. When they say, oh, they have come.
that is just a black man problem. When a black man sees police, you have to just run. Just run.
So
it's a survival mode.
And so how can the police then be the investigator of their crimes? It does not make sense. How can the military be the investigator of their crimes? You know, like the massacre in Kasese. It's uninvestigated because no independent inquiry has been undertaken to establish responsibility. In all this, it will take an independent inquiry, and that can only happen when the king, who controls all institutions and everything that happens, is no longer in charge. So the settlement of all this must be post Museveni. All our efforts for now must be focused on ending the rule of impunity. So that's where every effort must be.
So there is no justice for the zebras and those...
Not while those who perpetuate them are in charge of their country. There cannot be. Which justice? Which judicial bodies will dispense justice when we have said that judicial bodies have no independence, are totally controlled by the ones who are murdering? Who will dispense justice? You know, torture is a very serious offense according to our constitution, according to our laws. You saw Mr. Kakwenza here. Nobody doubts who collected him from his home. That one is not disputed. They are known. The one,
we saw everything.
Yes, the ones who collected from his home are known. The ones who brought him to court, dripping blood and pus, are known before that magistrate sent this terribly tortured person to prison. After a long time of illegal detention by the people who fetched him from his home. So the fact that he was tortured because he was collected from his home when he was normal, they took him back to inspect his home when the clothes he was putting on were all blood stained, and when he had wounds all over. He was eventually released in that form. Have you ever had anybody charged with torturing Kakwenza? Yet the people who arrested him are known. Some of them are the guards of the president. Have you ever, this is a very clear.
And he also mentions the names of the people that did that to him.
Yes, this is, so it's what we are dealing with is a state of impunity. There is absolutely no way you can ask the perpetrators of these crimes to investigate the crimes and report. It's an exercise in futility.
But do you know, Doctor, that can lead to anarchy, what we are talking about today. People not having justice, people being disgruntled, people being angry.
Of course, of course. Because why would I go to report anything to the police when maybe it is the police aggressing me? Where do I have to report? Can I run to the courts when the courts cannot give me justice? So I must take the law in my own hands. If you have taken my land, I cannot run to court, so I will lay you with a jambia, cut off your head, and the matter is settled. I settle it myself. That is where we are. That's the territory in which we are, where you saw the Balalo,
yes,
who have fenced off chunks of land in northern Uganda, the Acholis have not run to court.
Yes.
Because they know that there are no courts to run to. So they get their pangas, cut these fences, and so they say, we shall cut the cows, and then they are gathered and put in prison, like some of them have been put in prison, and they will stay in prison waiting for the moment when they get out and settle the scores. Yeah. So we are all that once the rule of law breaks down, as it has evidently done over a long time now in Uganda, you are waiting for some kind of a genocide. That's what is brewing. People anger brewing, and communities being angry against communities, not just individuals. That it's a very, very dangerous situation, and that's why I must at all times sound this call as an urgent call. What we need to do as a people, as Ugandans, is to rally together to end the rule of impunity.
So some people see that as a clarion call to anarchy. But before we answer that, let me just read a few messages coming in from our viewers. Thank you so much for watching. It's 39 minutes past 1 p.m. We have like 15 to 20 minutes to end this particular show. Let me read. This is Mudu Samson. Thank you so much for watching, sir. It says comedy in serious tones, perennial posturing. Then there is Nuwagava Dan Katorogo. I like you, Doctor. Mr. Museveni, respect should cut across, and this is why Ugandans listen to you. Others copy a duplicate of you. Respect, respect, respect. Then there is James Scott, who's watching live from Butaleja. Christine Amanda Nakagwa. She says the death of Kifefe is same dictator scare gimmick like Bobby Wine Driver, Mukono's hanged Seki Kubo, the hanged Acholis, the drive fear to anyone opposed to the dictator. Kadaga received the head of a baby. There is Ibra Goodman, long live. Then there is Christine. She continues to say, true, the dictator was surrounded by Ugandans with brains in the initial stages. They neutralized his evil intentions, unlike now. Moses Ngabirano, thanks Kano, Kizza, and Edgar. But in your introduction about issues, you've forgotten to talk about the rotten food which they found in government stores while Ugandans are crying of hunger. Yes, that is true. There was rotten food in the OPM stores earlier on this week. Oak Bernard says, thanks, Doctor. Since we don't have a health system, maybe emphasis should be on civic education and awareness. Interfax, thanks for being up to date. There is Gumi Siriza, Ivan watching. Then we still have a few messages there in. You can follow us on our social media platforms. We are the Alternative Uganda at Dr. Kizza Besigye's page, then also at Digitalk TV page. All of those platforms are there for you to be able to contact us. And then there's Bats Beacon. Thank you so much for watching. Campaign me Chris Ken. Rest in peace, Kifefe Musasi, Stevenson Screen, the obvious president. My president, Muhindo Ali, Maikano, Kampame Christian is watching. Mwebesa Ronald, my favorite president, Honorable Yombia Godfrey, Educative PK. Shame to Mr. 70 for saying that. There is Marajan Za. This government is the first to stigmatize people with HIV. Then Masko Lauben to Doctor, I believe. PK, I love you, my president. And you inspire me every day. There are lots of messages. Daudi Mwana, Wafe, Rachel, Sailin, Jacob, Kato, Jackson, Mugisha, Julio, Hilk, Josh, many of you. Kamoga Franklin Gooding, thank you so much for watching live from San Francisco, California. Doctor, those are some of the few remarks, but I just wanted, maybe you can reply to a few if there is. And this clarion call you keep on making, it is seen as a call to anarchy. Aren't you calling people to anarchy, or where is the line, the thin line between
a revolution is
revolution
a revolutionary is not anarchic.
Okay.
A revolution is a people reclaiming their authority and redirecting their situation. And, like I have pointed out, for example, in 1986, we carried out a revolution. It was not anarchy.
Okay.
We ended the status that was there and created a new situation.
At the cost of people's lives, at the cost of 500,000
Yes, there is no good situation that does not have a cost. Every good situation has a cost to getting it, even at a personal level. If you want to get education, you must forfeit other things. You must maybe not have money for enjoyment of yourself while you are investing in it. So every positive thing has some cost. And, if we are to move, so independence, for example, was costly to Ugandans, who were tortured, traumatized, killed by the colonial government.
Yes, sir.
For challenging it. But we were happy to get independence. And independence was not anarchic. The end of the governments we have had have been costly. The trouble with the cost that we have incurred in the previous changes,
yes, sir,
is that they were costs that led to cosmetic changes, not fundamental changes like Mr. Museveni alluded to the change of 1986. You remember at the doorsteps of Parliament,
yeah,
on 26th January, he said that what was happening on that day was a fundamental change and not a mere change of the guards. What is evident now, nearly 40 years later, is that what was happening then was only a change from UNLA to NRA then, but the quality of the Ugandans would continue to be under the same type of administration, with the Pandagali, with the disappearances, with the extrajudicial killings, with the corruption of a type that we had never witnessed in this country, and the rest. Exactly the same, or in certain respects, much, much worse. So it was clearly a mere change of the guards. That for 40 years, you have not had any peaceful change of government. And that constitution has been totally turned upside down, because wherever it did not favor the king, it was the constitution to change, not the king to be changed. And that is, so it will be worth the cost to have a change that addresses those fundamentals, that the change is not from one force to another force, but it is from a force to the people. And that's the qualitative difference that we hope the next change should deliver. That it should not be one force overthrowing another force, as has been in all the previous changes, that this change that we aspire to should bring ordinary people without guns to overthrow the ones with guns and subordinate them, so that those with guns are subordinate to the civilian authority. It will not happen by just on its own. It must be undertaken, subordination of military to civilian authority, so that all those with guns are saluting the ones without. Happens because the civilians have defeated the military. We must defeat them and subordinate them, so that they know that ultimate power depends on the population. If the population say no, you with your guns, you can do nothing. That's what we must demonstrate. And that's what we are going to demonstrate. That you can have guns, but we have greater power without guns, but the population has greater power. That if tomorrow we say we are locking down the country, you cannot open it with your guns. We shall block everything, and you will not be able to move with your Mambas, with your tanks, that you will not be able to move. That we shall make it impossible until you recognize our superiority. That's what we must do.
It feels like you want to test what the government can do. And you know what they can do.
Well, you see, the vicious governments are not starting in Uganda. They have been everywhere. They were simply defeated. In Europe, in the UK, in America, you know, the British ruled America with force. They are no longer there. They were defeated. And the locals who try to then take over the guns and rule by force have been defeated. That's how democracy becomes established. People must defeat those with the guns, and we shall defeat these ones, without doubt. They are, and you know, in the process of defeating those with guns, the gunmen themselves join the struggle, and this is why I invite those in the military, in the security, in the police, in the intelligence services, to join the population in asserting the will of the people rather than to act against the people of Uganda, which is what the Constitution commands them to do. That they should be subordinate to civilian authority. That's what the Constitution says.
Have you heard what happens to people who defect from NRM and try to do what you want them to do? You know what happens to them, most of them. We even have a case that is happening right now in court where one comes out as a whistleblower, Babidi, she whistleblows.
Yes.
And after whistleblowing, you become the suspect. How can a whistleblower become the suspect?
So,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. As an individual, you may be vilified and tortured and killed and so on. And indeed, I told you that those who stand up to say what we are saying attract a lot of wrath and risk of loss of life. And that's why, yes, some people must pay the cost. And we should not shy away from that eventuality. The people who organize, the people who make the call for this to happen are in serious danger. But eventually, when people rise up and say enough is enough and are organized,
yes, sir,
nobody can stop them. Nobody can stop the population once it takes a decision, once it rises up. Nobody can stop it. And that's what I believe must happen for Uganda to get a new dispensation.
Okay, Doctor, let me read just a few messages before we leave. There is also Happy Elijah, the best president Uganda deserves. Then there is Edgar Luxpai, Fortunate Muhangi. He says Dr. Kizza, the president. Then Kizito Barnabas, Dr. Kizza, Warren Smith Kifefe, the people's voice and freedom. I love you without compromise. Yunus Naf, Yunus says, indeed, enough respect to Dr. Besigye. Stella Nyanzi says she's late, but she's here. Then there is Danny Daniel. Stella Nyanzi also sends a message saying, the disappearance of Ugandans is a crime against humanity. Ugandan citizens must resist the normalization of disappearances at the hands of state operatives. It has actually become normal these days. John Paul Kamwanda, I won't comment anything today. I'm just hurt by the state of affairs in this country. And then we have a few messages there in, let me see. Okay, I think those are the few that we could read about right now. But there is, Trinom Juni, Batsby, I think those are just a few messages, Doctor, that we can read. Can just give us your parting shots and just...
Yes, so Edgar and all our dear audience, the challenge we have in this country is not a partisan challenge. It's not the opposition versus NRM.
Yes, sir.
It's not FDC or NUP versus another party. The challenge we have, and this must be very clearly understood, the challenge we have in Uganda is a few people who dominate and control the rest of the population and their resources.
Yes, sir.
And subjugate them to the level that Ugandans are now. That is what we must overcome. And this is why, anybody, whether you are NRM, whether you are in the military, whether we all have a duty to rally together to create a new dispensation.
Okay.
Now, secondly, the whole question of abuse of rights, is a question that must worry all of us, and we must all raise our voices and fight for those whose rights are being abused. The CMI in Mbuya, that place, the dungeon at the basement of that CMI in Mbuya is horrific. Many people have passed through there, and those who have died, and these people, they are still, browsing, talking lightly about their disappearance. Many of them died from that dungeon, I believe, because we have reports of people who die from there and are taken away. So we must stand up against all this and create a society where human life enjoys the highest protection and dignity. Lastly, once again, this being the 1st of December, I must end by making a very clear and unequivocal call to especially the young people of Uganda. Mr. Museveni calls them his bazukuru because this is his home. Everybody is his son, his daughter. He doesn't know that those bazukuru are his employers.
Doctor. He is fit. I also call him.
Yes, you can call him in a different environment. He's a servant. He must remember, he must be, if you want to become a Mzee, you go to your village and you are glad. Otherwise, if you are enjoying the salary and the privileges of an office, you must respect your employers. They are not just bazukuru, they are your employers. And you must account them as their servant. Wow. So, the young people, AIDS, HIV is avoidable, definitely avoidable. And if we avoid it for a while, we can end it. If there are no new infections, it will fizzle out. Those who have it will fizzle out, and it will fizzle out as an infection. So it's an infection that can be ended. And there has been a drive to end it, actually, that there is no more any HIV anywhere. by 2030. Unfortunately, 2030 is around the corner. But even now, it's possible to say by next year there will be no new infection. If you take the measures that are in place to protect you if you must have sex, or to avoid it altogether until you marry a person that doesn't have it and you live faithfully with each other, this can be stopped. And I think this day reminds us to do our bit to stop it. I wish you an AIDS, HIV-free society. I wish you a happy month of December where we prepare for the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ and the celebrations that go with it. Have a happy month. God bless you.
Okay, God bless you too. Thank you so much for watching from the entire team. I say thank you. There is Asha, thank you for watching always. Mugisa John, thank you. MC Pato, thank you. John Onyango, thank you. From Tororo, Simonic Wizi chapter, thank you. Paul Sisia, thank you. Mato Armed, thank you. There are many people who are watching this show. Thank you so much for watching, and always every Friday tuning in from 12 midday to 2 p.m. My name is Edgar. It has been a privilege having Doctor, but also having you from the time we started up to now. It's been something that is very, very easy. Thank you so much. See you next Friday. And we'll be here in Uganda, and we'll be also talking about talking points that have been happening in Uganda. Thank you so much from the entire team. See you soon. God bless you, and God bless Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.